What's good, Commanders fans? Just gonna react here to the 53-man roster. I will be making more videos because they're gonna sign some guys to the practice squad. Like I know Boston Scott just got signed by the Steelers, who just got claimed. So they're gonna claim some guys. They probably excuse me. They're gonna claim some guys today, and then they got to come up with the practice squad as well, and see who makes the practice squad. I think that should be determined sometime tonight or sometime in the next hour or two. So we'll see. But yeah, I guess the disappointing things I will say is Michael Wiley not making the roster. I thought he did enough to make the roster, especially if you're going to put Colson Yankoff on there. But we'll go position by position and just break this down. So quickly, quarterback Marcus Mariota, Jeff Driscoll, who was a surprise to me. I did not have him making the roster, and Jaden Daniels. So Jaden, I had it being two guys, Jaden and Marcus Mariota. Those are the only two guys that I put on there at the quarterback position, but they are keeping Jeff Driscoll. And then running back, B-Rob, of course, Austin Eckler, and then Jeremy McNichols. Jeremy McNichols is fine, but I would have kept Michael Wiley on there too. I just thought Michael Wiley played better in the preseason. But they like the veteran presence that Jeremy McNichols brings to the team, and he was there with Adam Peters for a couple of games. Had a couple of games for the Titans as well. So he's done a few things in the league, so I understand why they kept him. Not a bad player. Wide receivers, Martavis Bryant was kind of to me, to a lot of people, it was not a surprise, but to me, it was somewhat of a surprise because he played well the last game. And he did what they preached, basically the opposite of Jahan Dotson, where he blocked well. He forced pass interference. He was just a big body down in the red zone. He provided a big presence. Now, Jahan Dotson was a good red zone threat too his rookie season, but Martavis Bryant is just a strong, grown man. He is. And I thought he basically brought the identity of what they were looking for over the past. When they cut Jahan Dotson, we just, we know what they're looking for. They're looking for physical guys and a lot of physicality. And I thought Martavis Bryant fit the physicality bill there. So they kept Byron Pringle, who's a good kick returner. So I see the reasoning behind that. They kept Jameson Crowder, who deserves to be on the roster. He's our best punt returner. And then Mitchell Tinsley was not a surprise. Bryson Tremaine is not a surprise that those guys were released. So they kept 6, which is a good amount. I don't think it was necessary to keep 7. Do they go after Noah Brown? Do they go after Donovan Jones, Donovan Peoples Jones? Do they go after Tim Patrick? There's a couple names of guys. There's a couple guys they could go after. None of them are really like knocking your socks off or wowing you or anything like that. But there's a couple of receivers that they could claim on the waiver wire and whatnot. Bring them. I wouldn't mind. Tim Patrick has a couple injuries, so I'm not really banging on the table for him. But Noah Brown is somebody to take a look at. Kadarius Toney, maybe we'll see. I know a lot of people are against him because some of the things he's done on and off the field. But there's talent there with Kadarius Toney. I feel like there's some talent there. Now I know he's not a culture guy, but that's just a name to think about. It's just a name to think about. Tight ends, Colson Yankoff. He made the roster. Ben Sinnen, of course, Eckler, John Bates. Cole Turner didn't make the roster. He did not deserve to make the roster. Colson Yankoff, keeping him over Michael Wiley is a interesting decision in my opinion. I just didn't really see much from Yankoff to really be like, oh, he needs to make the roster. But they like him. They brought him in as a UDFA. So congrats to Colson Yankoff making the roster. When they bring in guys off waivers, Yankoff may be like a guy that they move to the practice squad, during the season and whatnot. Offensive line, Michael Dieter, Tyler Biadasz, Nick Allegretti, Andrew Wiley, Trent Scott, who I had making the roster. Brandon Coleman, of course. Chris Paul, I had him making the roster as well. Sam Cosmi, Cornelius Lucas. So they kept 9 guys. They did release Ricky Stromberg. Not a surprise, but a third-round pick from last year, 2022. Braden Daniels released. Not a surprise there. Even though Braden Daniels had a good preseason. So he had a good preseason, but they still released him, and he was, a 4th-round pick, man. So these Rivera guys, they got him out of here real quick, man. I'm telling you. They really did. What's the stat? Like, 7 out of the 2023. 7. So, hold on. The 2023 draft. They had 7 draft picks in 2023. And 5 out of the 7 are gone. So KJ Henry released, Ricky Stromberg released, Braden Daniels released, Chris Rodriguez released, Andre Jones released. So the 2023 draft, 5 out of the 7 picks are gone. Chris Rodriguez, everybody knew he was not going to make the roster. That was an Eric Bieniemy pick. Basically, he was the one who had kind of a say in that pick or endorsed that pick. So he's gone, and he probably will. I don't even know. He's going to be picked up by another team. He probably will be on a practice squad. Let's move on to The defensive line, congrats to Jamin Davis, a guy who was on the bubble, but he showed up in that Dolphins game. That was a big forced fumble by him, and I think that really cemented his roster spot for sure. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who I would have kept KJ Henry over him. So congrats to him making the team, but I would have kept KJ Henry on the roster instead of Javonte Jean-Baptiste. I think kind of Adam Peters is a little biased with the draft status where Adam Peters drafted Javonte Jean-Baptiste. He's not a bad player, but KJ Henry at this point is better than him. John Ridgeway, congrats to him. He made the roster. And Phidarian Mathis. Both those guys made the roster. They were trying to trade John Ridgeway, and they actually got calls for John Ridgeway. So maybe they can revisit that before the trade deadline. If they can get a 6th or 7th round pick, I guess is something to think about there with John Ridgeway. Phidarian Mathis made the roster. He was a bubble guy for real. A 2nd round pick by Ron Rivera. He makes the roster. Johnny Newton. And Johnny Newton was not put on injured reserve. Jordan McGee was put on injured reserve. So think about that too. Jerzon was not put on PUP or anything like that. So they do believe that he can be there week 1. So that's good news there. Deron Payne, of course, John Allen, Dorrance Armstrong, of course, and Cleveland Farrell. Andre Jones does not make it, and Benny Potato does not make it. He probably will be on the practice squad. Linebackers, Frankie Louvu, Dante Fowler, listed as a linebacker, Michael Walker, Dominique Hampton makes it as a hybrid linebacker safety, and Bobby Wagner, of course. Now, Anthony Pittman did not make the roster. He didn't play well in preseason, so I'm not surprised with that. He's more of a special teams guy, but he did not make the roster. And Michael Walker makes the roster. Cornerback and safety, they kept Derek Forrest was the biggest surprise to me. I really thought Derek Forrest was going to be gone. I did not expect for him to make the roster at all. I really didn't. Mikey Samerstill, of course, Jeremy Chin, who's a starter, and Mayo Forbes, who is going to be playing a lot of snaps. Noah I was awful in that last preseason game, but he makes the roster. Quan Martin, who's a starter. Derek Forrest, like I said, the surprise there. Michael Davis, we'll see if he starts at corner. Ben St. Juice makes the roster. Percy Butler makes the roster. Jeremy Reeves, the All-Pro. And then congrats to Tyler Owens, who played well, had the touchdown-saving tackle. And he just made plays on special teams, man. He was just flying around the football. Had a good tackle on Antonio Gibson as well, who badmouthed the team. And Tyler Owens, man, he stood out. He stood out in practice. He caught a couple interceptions in training camp. And he's an athletic freak. I mean, what has he got, like a 40-inch vertical or something like that? So he's just an athletic freak. And the guy, let's see if he makes an impact, man. 6'2", 210 pounds, so I'm happy for him. Excited for a UDFA guy like Tyler Owens to make the roster. So nothing but good things we've heard about Tyler Owens in training camp and that we saw in preseason as well. Cade York, Tress Way, Tyler Ott. So that's the roster right there. Trying to see if there's any other notes. Mikey Samerstill and De'Ami Brown, they both are wearing number 2. So let's see who gets number 2 at the end of the day. I think De'Ami Brown will probably keep number 2 because of the seniority. He's been on the roster for 3 years. Let's see here. What else? Dan Quinn said, you can feel their intensity and speed when they play, talking about Tyler Owens and Colson Yankoff. Quinn said, when you talk about establishing identity, those are the players who exemplify what you want. So that's a quote from Dan Quinn there. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's what stood out to me. Driscoll making the roster, keeping three quarterbacks. Martavis not making it. They kept Byron Pringle and Jamison Crowder, which is good. I'm fine with that. And then Michael Wiley not making it. He probably will be on the practice squad. Keeping McNichols. And then keeping Yankoff was a surprise to me. And offensive line, not really many surprises. Alex Taylor getting cut, that's not a surprise at all. And Stromberg getting cut, that's not a surprise to me either. And then they did keep 6 safeties. Yeah, they kept 6 safeties. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 safeties, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corners. So we'll see if they pick up a corner. Rocky Sin was released from the 49ers, so maybe they may pick up a guy like that just for cornerback depth. We'll see. But I do think through waivers, they're going to pick up another wide receiver, in my opinion, if I had to guess, and they're probably going to pick up another corner to bring to the roster. So those are the guys who I think from the waiver wire, those are the positions I think they're going to attack, wide receiver and corner from the waiver wire. So if there's any guys like Noah Brown or whoever you guys think that stand out to you in the waiver wire situation, just comment them down below and we'll take a look at them and we'll see if they end up on the roster. So, all right, you guys, Hail the Commanders, and Adam Peters really moved on from the Ron Rivera era for sure. All right, you guys, Hail the Commanders. Peace.